talked a lot about the UK and how it's exposed in this situation, how the EU holds a lot of cards, but actually the EU is reasonably exposed to the risks of no deal as well, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just look at the Irish border. If there's a no-deal situation, what is the EU going to do? Does it, erect a border there between Northern Ireland and Ireland? Now, we know there's a history of conflict, so neither the UK or Ireland will want to do that. But then, do you impose checks between Ireland and the rest of the EU? So there are lots of questions that the EU are probably discussing now behind closed doors, but we haven't had any whiff of what they would like.
And to this point, since 2016, the EU's been remarkably unified, at least in public, but more and more pressure is coming to bear, isn't it? Do you think that unity is under threat?
Yes and no. I mean, if we're talking about the extension, over the past couple of days, you had leaders, EU parliamentarians come out and say, look, we would be open to an extension, but there needs to be a purpose. Something needs to change. You can't just kick the can down the road. We can't find ourselves in the same situation in 3 months' time and have an endless extension. So what you were hearing is we need a purpose, but then when they were asked how long they wanted that extension to last, they were divided. So yes, but I think on the whole, they will find a way to get one position, and it was, that happened today. The President of the European Council, Donald Tusk, said we would be open to a short extension, but there needs to be a vote in the UK Parliament before we make our decision.
So a lot of attention on the European parliamentary elections from the 23rd to the 26th of May. EU saying, look, you've got to get it done before or extend way beyond. Do you think that issue is important, or do you think it's just it looks important, but in the scheme of things, actually, it's not a major obstacle?
EU elections are hugely important. I mean, they are going to elect a new European Parliament, and that institution plays a role. It scrutinises all the legislation that comes out of the European Commission. And just take President Macron of France. He's placed these elections at the heart of his, campaign and the heart of his government policy this year. He said, I want to make sure that these elections are successful. I want to make sure that we have a European Parliament that's representative. So they do take that seriously. The question around the 23rd of May, I think, is open to debate. The President of the European Council today said we would be open to an extension until the 30th of June, which is what the UK government has requested. Whether or not that would be possible is, some people say you can't actually be a member state, so the UK couldn't remain an EU country and not hold elections, because it would be denying UK and EU citizens in the UK the right to either stand or vote in those elections, even if it's planning to leave in June.
And just quickly, would you anticipate the EU saying yes to an extension?
Honestly, everything depends on what goes on next week and how the MPs vote. I think what we need to remember is the EU have been pretty consistent. They don't want a no deal either. So the President of the European Council today said, look, we would be open to a short extension. It depends how you vote next week. But he was silent on a long extension. So I think everything's possible.
Georgina, thank you very much indeed.